This is Akashvani. We feature a literary talk by Dr.V. Mainar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, DG Vaishnav College. The Beggar as a symbol of society's hypocrisy. From The Beggar by Guy de Maupassant.
I would like to present my thoughts on The Beggar, written by Guy de Maupassant, with a focus on the central theme, the beggar as a symbol of society's hypocrisy. Have you ever walked past someone in need, a beggar on the street, a child knocking on your window, and felt an internal tug of war? That moment of hesitation where your empathy is interrupted by doubt, suspicion, or even irritation? Now imagine this. A man worn down by hunger and humiliation stretches out his hand not just for food but for dignity. And instead of help, what does he receive? Mockery, moral lectures, suspicion. This is the heart of Guy de Maupassant's short story The Beggar, a deceptively simple narrative that holds up a brutally honest mirror to our society. Maupassant does not merely write about poor man asking for help. He writes about all of us, how we react to suffering, how we rationalize indifference, and how we hide cruelty behind civility. In the story, Beggar is shown as helpless, impoverished figure who is constantly ignored, judged, or dismissed by the wealthy and respectable people he approaches. Instead of receiving compassion, he receives harsh words or fake smiles. This reflects a society that talks about charity, morality, and religion but fails to act when real sufferings appears before them. The beggar is often told, "Go find work," yet no one offers him one. This shows that unrealistic expectations placed on the poor by those in comfort. Maupassant reveals how people like to appear generous, but only when it is convenient. They may donate to charities or build institutions in the name, but when they are personally faced with a suffering individual, they walk away. This is a central hypocrisy, a gap between public image and private action. One man speaks about helping the poor, but immediately brushes the beggar off, treating him like a nuisance. This behavior is not just an individual flaw, it reflects a larger societal attitude, where poverty is just as a personal failure rather than a collective responsibility. Another form of hypocrisy is blaming the victim. The beggar is seen as a lazy, immoral, or even deceitful. No one considers that he may be a victim of circumstances, joblessness, war, illness, or a sheer bad luck. The phrase from the text, "he must be pretending," is used by passerby even when the beggar is clearly weak and starving. This distrust towards the poor allows society to escape guilt. They don't want to feel responsible, so they convince themselves that the beggars are not deserving of help. The most powerful moment comes at the end, when the beggar is found dead, alone and ignored in the cold. His death is not caused by violence or accident, the cold-hearted indifference of society. People who claim to live in a civilized, caring society have allowed a human being to die on the streets. His death becomes a mirror, showing the audience that true cruelty lies not in action but in apathy. Let us now also look at the symbolic role of the beggar. He is not just one man. He represents the voiceless, powerless, and invisible members of society, the ones we choose not to see. He is a symbol of the broken promises of progress and civilization. While the world becomes wealthier, poverty still exists because unequal distribution, pride, and false morality. Even today, in the 21st century, the same scenes play out in every country. People talk about human rights, social justice, and compassion, but still step over the homeless on the streets. The Beggar Maupassant tells the story of a destitute man who enters a restaurant, The beggar is a symbol of the marginalized, the people who exist on the edges of society, often invisible unless they become inconvenient. He represents not only poverty, but the uncomfortable truth that not everyone has the same chances and not every struggle is visible. His presence tests the morality of those around him, and they fail. Instead of offering him food, even compassion, they interrogate him. They do not ask, how can we help? They ask, why should we help you? The beggar becomes a moral mirror. He does not speak much, but his silence is powerful. His ragged appearance becomes a challenge to their polished identities. He confronts them without words about their self image. In response, they become defensive. That's what Maupassant shows us how society makes its indifference with superiority. Let me share a particularly biting line from the story. The man remained still with his hat in his hand while they laughed, secured in the belief that their laughter was wisdom. What a cruel irony. They don't even see themselves as cruel. They think they are being clever, funny, wise. But wisdom without compassion is just a vanity. The beggar's humiliation is not just personal. It is symbolic of how society systematically strips dignity from those who are most in need of it. It is saying one thing and doing another. It is preaching kindness while practicing indifference. It is declaring values that are never lived. And nowhere this is clearer than in how society treats the poor. The characters are pretend to be moral. They believe they are good people. But the moment they are confronted with real suffering, their true colors show. They rationally cruelty by questioning the beggar's motive. Why don't you work? How do I know you won't buy alcohol with this money? Why should I give you what I earn? Sound familiar? These are not just lines from 19th century story. These are phrases we still hear and they say today. We use judgment as an excuse. We use morality as a weapon. And we disguise selfishness as a responsibility. This is the hypocrisy Maupassant exposes. And he does it with a sharp realism, not through grand drama or sentimentality, but through ordinary scenes, ordinary people, ordinary cruelty. What makes this story so chilling is how familiar it feels. Even now, in our cities, people perform generosity in public but ignore human need in private. They post charity selfies online, yet step over someone sleeping on the sidewalk. We praise generosity, but only when it is convenient. We support justice only when it doesn't cost us comfort. And Maupassant forces us to ask, are we truly moral or just morally performative? Because the hypocrisy criticized is alive and well today. Let's think about how modern society deals with poverty and the poor. Homeless shelters are built far from city centers to hide them. Welfare programs are under constant attack not because they don't help, but because some people believe the poor are undeserving. Beggars are criminalized in many places, not helped, but fined and arrested. In our world of social media and curated appearances, we have taken hypocrisy to a new level. People share inspirational quotes about kindness while ignoring real human suffering. We often hear, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. But what if the man is too weak to fish? What if the river is poisoned? What if someone else owns the boat? Poverty is not always a choice, and yet we behave as if compassion must be earned. Maupassant reminds us that the true test of society is how it treats the vulnerable, not how well it dresses up its institutions or how elegantly it debates ethics. The beggar says little, yet his presence is powerful. His silence serves two functions. It highlights dignity in desperation. He does not argue or defend himself, in contrast with a loud, moralizing crowd suggesting that those who suffer do not need judgment, but understanding. He is not an individual in the traditional sense. Maupassant gives him a no name, no backstory, no inner monologue. This makes him a universal symbol of all people reduced to begging whose identities are ignored by society. The beggar becomes a test. How do people respond to someone who needs help but cannot offer anything in return? As the story progresses, he looks for just single piece of bread from somebody, but nobody was ready to give him something. That makes him very sad and put him to walk 5 miles with so much of difficulty in his hand and legs. He crosses the field and he could see the hens eating the food. And immediately he thinks about the God and expecting something to come from the heaven and help him. Rather than compassion, he is met with suspicion and arrogance. His presence challenges the self-image of the people around him, and the reaction is to reject that challenge with scorn. The story reveals that the people who consider themselves moral are often the most callous when truly tested. The people in the cafe or restaurant may believe themselves to be virtuous. They're likely to attend religious services, speak about ethics, and then think of themselves as good citizens. Yet, their behavior toward the beggar is not kind. It's cruel and self-righteous. Maupassant exposes the gap between professional values and actual behavior. In essence, the story says talking about morality is easy, living is not. A recurring excuse for inaction in the story is the assumption that the beggar is lazy, deceitful, or morally inferior. This reflects a larger social tendency to blame the poor for their condition rather than examine structural inequality or individual misfortune. People often find comfort in believing that poverty is deserved. It helps them justify their own comfort. People in the story feel good about themselves by mocking or lecturing the beggar, not by helping him. All he needs is one piece of bread which he has not eaten for so many days. This kind of performance morality is still relevant today, whether it is charitable donations done for social approval or public sympathy that disappears when real action is required. In Maupassant's time, over a century later, the themes of the story remain profoundly relevant. Homeless individuals are often judged before they are helped. Public welfare systems are constantly questioned on the basis of deservedness. Social media culture promotes image or substance even when it comes to compassion. Today's hypocrisy may be dressed in modern clothing, but it remains essentially the same. The beggar invites us to confront these lingering issues. The beggar is not just a story, it is just a wake-up call. It shows us that real morality is not about what we say, it is about what we do when no one is watching. Maupassant holds up a mirror not to shock us, but to awaken us. Are we bystanders who scoff and judge? Or can we be the few who act even when it is inconvenient? The beggar in the story may be nameless, faceless, silent, but he speaks volumes. He is a symbol of every person who has been judged instead of helped, of every soul who needed compassion but found condemnation. The measure of society, said Gandhi, is how it treats its weakest members. And so I ask you, what does our treatment of the beggars in our midst say about us? Let us not be like the crowd in the cafe, smiling while turning away. Let us be better. Let us remove the mask of morality and replace it with a real human compassion. Thank you.
You just heard to a literary talk on the beggar as a symbol of society's hypocrisy from The Beggar by Guy de Maupassant. The talk was delivered by Dr.V. Mainar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, DG VAISHNAV College. This program came to you from the studios of Akashvani, Chennai.